Hey guys, welcome back. Drip Coach here with Drip and Farm for Poverty, where we don't trust, we verify, and operate with integrity and transparency. On today's clip, we got Ray Dalio as he was being interviewed by Steve Bartlett, the Diary of a CEO, recently on September 11th. If you're not familiar with Ray Dalio, he is the CEO of the largest hedge fund in the world, Bridgewater. He wrote a bunch of books. I have shown him on the channel before. This most recent one, I think I did back during the drip era, the changing world order. Highly recommend you watch this video if you don't want to read the book. It's just 43 minutes and basically talks about the fourth turning and where we are as a species, and especially in regards to the decline of the different powers and how that has been systemic over time. So in this clip, Ray is touching on what he calls the very, very dark times for America and the UK, and this decline is imminent and coming soon to a region near you. So he says the cycle is turning, the middle is collapsing, and the winners of the tech war will decide the next world order. He's not optimistic about the UK, nor is he optimistic about the US, and the clock on the post-World War II order just hit the danger zone. So he believes this is the last quiet moment before things accelerate, and let's get into it. So we'll play this first opening clip.
Dalio is the legendary billionaire investor
who decoded the cycles of human history to predict financial crashes,
built the world's largest hedge fund,
and now to warn us about what lies ahead.
Are you optimistic about the future of the UK?
No.
What about the United States?
No.
Why?
Okay. In order to bet on what's going to happen on the global economy, I learned that there's 5 big forces that create a big cycle that's repeated through history, which lasts about 80 years. First is the money debt force that creates wealth and opportunities gaps. And it's connected to the second force, the internal conflict, where you don't trust the system, causing wars between the left and the right. And it's not easy answers like tax the rich, and we can get into that. But the third is geopolitical force. In other words, international conflict. Then there's acts of nature. And then number 5 is man's inventiveness, particularly of new technologies. Now, the question is who wins the technology war, because the winner of that determine how the new world order works.
Is it
So right there, he just pretty much it's talking about the two of the economic powers right now, the US and the UK. And unless you've had your head in the sand or under a rock, or living under a rock, so to speak, then you may not be aware of what he just said. Number 1 is one of the big forces of the 5 is money and debt. Well, definitely the US and the UK have problems with that. Number 2, internal conflict. All you got to do is open social media. Most recently, we've seen some very heightened things happening with Charlie Kirk. Heart goes out to him and his family. Rest in peace. And then number 3, geopolitical. So again, all you got to do is turn on social media, the news, and you could see all what's going on in China, Russia, even North Korea's president or dictator. He was there. They were marching lock and step together. So BRICS and all that stuff, even the stuff going on with India. So that's number 3. Number 4, acts of nature. I don't know so much of its acts of nature or of man creating acts of nature on its own. Look back what we've seen in the most recent, what was that? Floods, and then the fires in Hawaii and in California. So call those acts of nature or man-made, I don't know. But the last one is man's inventiveness, and mainly talking about tech and development. So again, all you gotta do is open up your smartphone or whatever, you can see anything AI making the news. So all 5 of these are coming to a head or brewing right now in real time. So what does that mean? I have no idea in regards to the time frame, but Ray gives some pretty sound advice. But let's first break down him talking about not being very optimistic about the US. Get some details on that.
But are you optimistic about the United States at the moment?
The United States is very much a big picture. No, I think it's very much in this issue. So if I go down my list, it definitely has this debt, money, economy problem. We can get into that. Okay. It definitely has the internal conflict power in which there's a fight between the left, the hard left and the right due to wealth and values gaps and people not believing that the system will work for them. And so democracy is at risk because they don't believe this. They're not going to follow the rules, in the sense they don't believe the rules are going to. Number three is.
Pause right there real quick. If you watched my last video about what happened with that wealth gap and how the people, the Nepalese people, that exact reason, the wealth gap. They basically got tired of seeing the wealthy Nepalese influencers or Gen Zers on TikTok living like royalty while everybody else was scraping for scraps just to get by on a day-to-day basis. I'm like, wait a minute, this system is broken. So we haven't quite got there in the US and maybe in these Western worlds where people really are feeling the pain of the wealth gap. But make no mistake, there is a wealth gap. And this was a revolution that took place here, September 2025, using the tools and tech that we have available. Granted, it's Nepal and they only have 29 million people, but the point Ray makes in his book, Principles, and more specifically, The Changing World Order, is that you can look at this over history, 500 years of history. And when all five of these things line up, these five forces, money, debt, internal conflict, geopolitical, acts of nature, and man's inventiveness, it causes for a regime change.
It's, of course, the leading one side in this great power conflict of the world, right? In other words, yes, between the United States and the one side, let's say, and China and the allies, their allies on the other side. I mean, in the news, you just saw the meetings of Xi, Putin, Modi, and that group over there walking down, and okay. So now it should be pretty clear how the sides are lining up, okay? It's always better to be in a place that's not in one of those wars. Like, stay out of wars. And of course, climate has an effect. And of course, then we have technology. The United States and China are in the big technology competitions. The others are really not in the game. They don't have the money, this innovation and talent, in a sense, to play at that scale, and so on. So we have a great, technology war, which can be used to create great advances, but at the same time could be used for great conflicts. And so now the question is going to be, who wins the technology war? Because the winner of the technology war is going to win all wars. Okay.
He just dropped a really important tip, and I know a lot of you are going to have some pushback or whatever and say it's not an option, but like he said, the way to survive, or best way to survive in this, is to not be in one of these places. Avoid all wars. And that's going to get to the punchline that I'm going to get to, where Steve asked him, he's like, yeah, so what do I do? But I forgot who it was. It might have been Michael Saylor, talking about the history of man and wars. And it's like, the old wars were fought with ships, and whoever had the strongest naval power is what dominated back in the day. Then a little bit more to air power, but the main thing is went from ships to now chips, and it's all about tech, like Ray just mentioned. So whoever's going to dominate this war is going to be the one that is dominating the technology front. And like he said, those two big leaders or powerhouses is definitely the US and China. So the ironic thing is, like, we in the US have the companies and the innovators come here, but the tech or the equipment is coming out of China. So it's going to be interesting to see how that actually shapes up. But let's get to the punchline of what Steve's asking him. He's like, yeah, so how do we counteract these risks? What do we do?
For me and my family, though, in terms of risks and how I should counteract those risks, is it a case of me saving for a rainy day?
That's part of it.
Yeah.
There's a saying in Hong Kong, a Chinese saying, which is, a smart rabbit has three holes. And what that means is, you can see, is it the UK or the US? And I can then move to the better place and get out of the place that's a terrible place. So can I successfully be an immigrant or whatever and change my location throughout history? That's been important. So the ability to go to good places and away from bad places. So that's part of it. Secondly, building your financial strength is important, which has to do with how you earn, spend, and save. That will determine the amount. And then what you do with that amount is invest. And so how you invest is also important. So if you have your financial ability and you can make the move, and then you have knowledge, about what's happening so that you can change things, Those are the things you need.
So on that first point about a smart,
So that to me is 100% the smart play. And ironically, that's exactly what I have done. Not to toot my own horn, but it's interesting how that strategy actually works out. So in that Chinese analogy or parable he mentions, the first step he says is find a location that you can avoid some of these potential outcomes. So it's like, like you said, the US or UK, it's leave. So that's exactly what I did. And one of the main reasons for leaving is that financial stability, which leads to number 2, so that you can have more savings. So 1, get somewhere that's cheaper. And again, put my money where my mouth is. I showed you guys this before, literally because I started changing my DCA because I relocated. So I started out in January doing like $25 once or twice a week. You see it February, blah, blah, blah. Then I increased it when it came to March and April, started doing like $50 every couple of days, 11, 12, 13, 15, 17, 18. Then it went to $75. That's when I actually left Cambodia. So basically, I think I left in March, maybe April, somewhere in that time frame. So I stayed with my dad for like a month, so I didn't have any expenses. And I stayed with my mom for a month, no expenses. So that was all about just savings. So I started doing $75 a day in Bitcoin. And then I eventually relocated to South America, and I increased my DCA ever since May 15th, it's been $100 a day. And I am living off of Bitcoin. So you'll see every once in a while that there is a subtraction. That's because it's going directly to Morpho to do a loan on Morpho. Full disclaimer, I do plan on getting that back off of Morpho because I still don't trust Brian Armstrong and Coinbase, but it has been the absolute easiest way because I can just come through here, go straight to Morpho, I get USDC, and then I was using Spritz to pay my credit card bill. I haven't figured out who I'm going to use instead right now, but I'm just showing you guys full transparency. It's been $100 a day nonstop since May. And that is 100% tied to exactly what Ray said. Number 1, leave. 2, cut your expenses, financial, start saving. 3, invest. And the only thing I believe worth investing in is Bitcoin. So I'm showing you guys that. Like, I made this journey of getting out of shit tokens and community cult projects. I still have like SwapX and I still have some alts from last season and all that stuff like that, but I haven't bought any more since what I showed you guys on CoinMarketCap on my portfolio. I made those 2 investments that have not yielded any fruit, and I have not put anything else in. Now, full disclaimer, I have been buying $3 worth of Doge every day and $5 worth of Solana every day, I think since probably February or March. So it's just $10. It was $10 total, but base charges $1 for each of those 2 DCAs. So that's it. That's my entire portfolio: Bitcoin, Solana, and Doge. And all those are in the green right now. So I know for some people it's going to be difficult. Maybe you say you can't move or whatever, but I forgot who had this quote. I think, Tony Robbins actually. It's not a matter of resources, it's a matter of resourcefulness. So you may have family, you may have a home, you may have something, a job tying you down, but I guarantee if shit hit the fan like it did in the UK or like it did in Venezuela and some other countries, people found a way to pack the fuck up and move. So it's resourcefulness. So if you had to absolutely leave because shit got real in the country that you're living in, or you couldn't stay there any longer, then you would find a way to leave. You'd be much more resourceful. So I know there will always be pushback of people like, I can't do that. I'm not single. I'm this. I have family. But trust me, somebody started throwing bombs in your backyard or shit hit the fan, I guarantee you would have no excuses at that stage. So be resourceful if you want to avoid whatever the hell this up and coming fork turning shapes up. Like, I have no idea. I don't think, speculatively that we're going to see a collapse of the American empire and the US dollar. I believe they can kick that can down the road a lot further. I believe, as I told you guys, the very next step is a unified 3 to 5, maybe 7 max world currencies, global currencies. So like you'll have the BRICS, you'll have whatever the UK is, and you'll have North America. So that would be 3. I believe that is the next stage, and it will be some form of a CBDC built on the rails of digital IDs. I didn't realize this, kind of a segue, how much of our information is already out there. If you dug into Palantir, I believe it is, and any of the CIA, FBI stuff and surveillance, it is crazy. And especially now with smartphones and all this stuff, like using your camera on your phone, the finger ID that the iPhone originally had, voice recognition, like all of that stuff is actually, if you believe it or not, tinfoil hat, being collected. So from all these people that are saying they're not sharing your data, it is 100% being shared and collected. So I believe a digital ID system is in the works on multiple levels at multiple countries. Another segue fun fact, out here in Colombia and in Ecuador, they have what's called a cedula, which is essentially like a countrywide identification card. And that thing is used everywhere, for your bus tickets to purchasing meals and getting reward discounts at freaking restaurants. Like, you are identified every damn where. It's not like a surveillance like China, but randomly on the street, a cop can stop and just look up your information and find out where you've been, what you checked in with. That cedula, that number, like social security number in the US, is used everywhere. It is crazy. So it's not just some deep state, United States, China, whatever system. It's like they're already in other countries as well. So brought all this to say, 100% check out Ray Dalio and his information. He's not about doom and gloom. He does his research, pulls up the facts, and then it's up to you to decide what you want to do with it. But for me, it was all about exiting the fiat system, specifically the country as well as the dollar, getting somewhere where I have some freedom and stability. And if shit hits the fan, even out here, I got my seed phrase and I can just jump on a plane and go. All right, smash that HBO special, help a brother out, like, subscribe, comment down below. Until next time, live daily and achieve your impossible. See ya.